All right. Hello, Gun Nation. It says we are live. We're going to give it a few minutes. We have a special guest on this evening. This is Ark from Arkz Guns or Gun. So we'll be talking about him. And if you all want to check out his channel, it is pinned in the comments. His channel subscription. You can go over and check him out. And then also in the description of this video, you can get his link and go over and check him out. And we got G23, Mike High, CZ Shadow 2, and we'll say hi to some other people when they jump in. But how are you doing this evening, sir?
I am doing great.
Good, good. Yeah, really good to have you on. Appreciate you joining me this evening. Then everyone out there, this is his first live chat, so he's never done a live before. But he's got a bunch of videos out there, so y'all can go check him out. But how long have you been doing YouTube?
It's been almost a year now.
Okay.
Almost a year.
Okay. And he did pass over the 1,000 subscribers and all that good stuff. So he is able to monetize his videos and have community and, chat. He could do his own chat and things like that if he chooses to do so later. How are you doing, Dirt Track and the Gun Snob? So we're getting more people in here, but Lake Ozark guys. So like I said, the links are in the description of the video of this video and also the comments. So y'all can go over and sub up Arkz Gun. Yeah, what we're going to do is get to know him a little bit. I'll tell you first how I was introduced to him. I was bumping into some videos that he had done on some really cool guns, and I was kind of going through some of his library, and I was like, man, we have a lot of guns in common that he has and likes and things like that. So that's how I kind of bumped into him. And then so I've subscribed to him. I think he subscribed to me, and so we started talking, and I was like, hey, man, and we're not too far from each other, so we are going to meet at Texas Gun Experience and take him in there, and he's going to bring some guns. I'm going to bring some guns that he hasn't tried and I haven't shot of his, and probably shoot those, maybe do a video together, stuff like that. But I wanted to have him on and introduce him to y'all, and I would appreciate if y'all go over and subscribe to him. He has a small channel, but as y'all know, I like to help people grow. And but tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into guns?
Ultimately, what got me into guns was just self-protection. I come from Florida, and I wasn't always in the best neighborhoods and stuff like that growing up, and I just wanted to have something just to protect myself. And my first firearm that I ever purchased was a Glock 19 Gen 4.
Okay.
And ever since then, I've kind of just been learning about them. And as I learned more, I start to realize like all the different kinds and all the different types. And I just became in love with it. The whole aspect of just firearm technology, ultimately.
Yeah. And how long have you been shooting?
I have been shooting. So I want to say I've been recreationally shooting for, I want to say about 8 years. And past the 8 years, I have been now like actively doing my own little trainings where I'm no longer just recreationally shooting and just shooting in a straight line. I'm doing reloads, movements, and things like that now for about 2 years. So I've taken my shooting a little more seriously.
Okay. And Dennis Buckner is welcoming you to the family, Ark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah. And if you watch his videos, he puts on his battle belt. And, that was another thing. I was kind of like, hey, I do that too, and it was just watching him and some of the stuff that he does in his videos, and he's kind of a raw take guy like me. It was just like, you know what, we have something in common. I think he would be a good mix. So I invited him to come on, and he did. And, here we are. And how old were you when you shot your first gun? Do you remember?
Yes, it was actually one of my closest friends. His dad actually took us shooting for the first time ever. And I want to say I was 18 at that time. And I can't remember what model Glock it was, but it was a 45 ACP.
Okay.
And it wasn't anything too crazy, but it was just one of those reflections when you first fire your gun for the first time that you realize you're like, oh my God, this is a very dangerous, powerful tool.
Yeah. That was the first caliber I had shot in a pistol, was a 45 ACP. So, but we've got Lynn Holt, Scott, Dennis Buckner, LZ USA. And LZ USA says, hello. I already checked out his channel. I would recommend it. So there you go.
Thank you.
Another family member. We got Bald and Curious in the house. Matt Moore. Hope everyone is doing well. And y'all hit that like and like button. We appreciate it. But now, as far as just, and this is one of my standard questions. Any military or law enforcement in your background?
No, I am
Okay,
just a regular Joe. That's how
there
I
you
like
go.
to call it. I just call myself a Joe.
That's what I am. He's just one of the regular old dudes who enjoys his Second Amendment and gets to have that freedom. So that's a
Yes.
good thing. Ranger is saying, "Hey, Big J, great to have you, Arkz." So that's awesome.
Thank you, Ranger.
Yeah, we've got Indy Irish, William Bader. So William Bader's in Chandler, Arizona. That's cool. Lake Ozark guy just subscribed to Ark's Guns. Looking forward to watching your content. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, it's always good to see a channel that is coming up and stuff like that, and helping them grow. I always enjoy helping our community. I think more people need to do that. Um, Always a good thing, never a bad thing. Hello, reloading from the hot pot. Also, after my chat, Chris and reloading from the hot pot, they have a chat after this. So
Mm,
when Chris comes on, you can, and I'll send you a link if you want to check it out later. But they do like a
definitely.
lot of reloading and stuff like that, and talk about different things. But reloading said he subbed to you also, so that's good.
Thank you.
But
Thank you so much.
huh?
Oh, I said thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's reloading from the hot pot. And reloading has a lot of different guns he likes to play with, and so does Bald. Matter of fact, I've met Bald and Curious in person. We've shot together a few times. He lives in
Mhm.
he lives in bad old New York, but hopefully he'll get the hell out of there soon. But now, as far as your collection, and now, like I said, if y'all haven't checked out his collections, he's got Staccatos, Shadow 2s, Bull Armories, SIGs, all these different guns that y'all are probably very familiar with also. But out of your collection, if you have to pick two favorite handguns, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you have to pick two favorite handguns, could you pick two favorite handguns that you own?
I would easily choose my Staccato XC number one. That gun is literally cheating. I mean, I've literally put that gun on people's hands who do not shoot at all whatsoever, and they have like the rig target, and they literally hit every single one without one miss. That's how effective and amazing that firearm is. And the second one that I would probably choose is my everyday carry, which is actually my Staccato C2. I feel like the C2 is a diamond in the rough. It is a it's not exactly like the smallest firearm. It ultimately really is the size of a 19X, maybe a little bit thicker. But the performance you can get of something so small like that there are not very many that can touch that, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, those are two great choices. I'm sure you're probably wondering if I have to pick two, because I'm sure they're going to say, "Well, you got to tell us now, Big J." If I have two, if I have to pick two, um, it's a very hard one, but I would say, and they kind of tie, but I would say my DS9 hybrid MPA.
Mm,
The reason being, it does have the aluminum grip. It does have the steel frame. It's a heavier gun. Really mitigates recoil. Super flat, super fun. But the P with the comp is right there. But it's all aluminum. So they're both right there, but one has a comp, one doesn't. So that's kind of there. Um, and then I would say my Staccato C2 also, but it does have the comp, so it's a longer, slide, so to say, with a comp. But that DS9 Commander is right there with it. I mean, it's a great gun. So but those are probably, and I have other favorite guns too, or other guns I really really enjoy, but
right,
those are probably my 2/4 because they're kind of together.
right.
But you know, that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, same for me. And like that NPS that you're talking about, that is one I've always wanted to try pretty bad. When I went out checking them out, I didn't have like the best experience at first. But after talking to you and actually, because ultimately, to be honest, anytime I look for content on that particular firearm, it's your channel who has them. It's not a lot of content out on it, and that's where I ultimately discovered it. To be honest.
Yeah, and I don't like to have guns that every single person has. Not saying that that's a bad thing, because there's a lot of great guns that we all enjoy, so we all get them. But I kind of like to have stuff that maybe is off the beaten path or not
Yep.
everybody has. Um, and so when I latched onto those, I was just like, man, these are kind of diamonds in the rough, because they're just, when I started talking about it, some people are like, what the hell is that company? I've never even heard of them.
Right.
So. But yeah, Mike High, subscribe to you also. We appreciate it very much. And Matt Moore. Now, and I wanted to ask you this also. I know you have a
Yep.
lot of pistols, but do you
Yeah.
do any rifle stuff, PCC stuff, anything like that?
So I do have two rifles and then one PCC. The PCC that I do have is the Diamondback DB9R.
Okay.
And I wanted to get myself into an AR9, like a very much starter AR9. It was going to be my first one. I didn't want to spend like too much money on it. And also my wife, I had a chance to try one and she liked them a lot, so she wanted to do one. So when I went looking around, I was trying to figure out which way to go. And like I said, I didn't want to go on the beaten path of what everybody chooses, because when I went and looked around the line, man, you'd see like that the top three always the same ones everywhere, 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 and they're amazing and they're cool. But I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And after looking around, like I said, it looked like Diamondback for in the beginning didn't have like the best start. But if you actually watch their evolution of their firearms, particularly their PCCs, you can see they have they're at like Gen 5 of the DB9R. They have so many variations, so they're constantly updating it. So I decided to go with that DB9R. And then I do have a couple of other rifles, but nothing too serious. Soon
Okay.
though, I will be getting myself into a IWI Galil Gen 2.
Okay. Okay.
That's one I've been wanting for a while.
Yeah, those are cool. All right. Well, Dennis has a question, or I'm sorry, not Dennis. Matt Moore has a question. Big J, let's have a civil discussion sharing ideas. Why a PCC for home defense? What advantage does it give you that a rifle does not? So, and Matt, just so you know, I didn't say you got to use a PCC for home defense. It was just, would you kind of like, if you notice, it says, you know, AR9 for home defense question mark, meaning just everybody give their opinion. But would you choose a PCC or a rifle, AR-15 rifle for home defense? What would you choose if you had to choose one?
Um, that's a tough question, to be totally honest with you. There's like pros and cons to both of them. One of the pros about a 9 mil is well, for home defense, ultimately it doesn't matter at the price how much you're going to be shooting. So I guess I'm thinking to myself, like, how much can you shoot it? But I guess if I was to go down to home defense, I'd probably stick with like an AR-15.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My main concern would be like penetration, to be totally honest with you.
Yep.
Um, that's the last thing you want. You don't want any mistakes when something like that happens. So
No.
you have to be mindful when you're choosing your calibers for home defense.
Yeah, I would give this example. I have shot, now it was an abandoned home. It was being torn down. This was a long ass time ago, but I shot, pistols in this house. Okay. And this was an abandoned, tear down home. We shot pistols in the home and we shot rifles, AR rifles in this home. AR rifles are freaking loud as hell inside of a house. I mean, you get a lot of concussion. It's loud. Now, I'm not saying pistols are not loud or, PCCs are not loud, but I do know this. My 16-inch PCC is a hell of a lot quieter than my AR-15s. Even in the 16-inch, they're freaking loud as hell inside of a house. So if you had to shoot and you didn't, put your hearing protection and all that crap on, I I would probably much rather shoot a PCC in my home. I'm talking non-suppressed on both. Okay, if I had suppressors, it's not going to matter, or it would be better. But I would choose to shoot a PCC in my home over an AR-15 unsuppressed. Um, but is there like one over the other? Yes, penetration. Depending on your sheetrock walls, etc. Um, where I was going with this, and sometimes, and I've tried this, I've put my wife behind my PCC and I've put my wife behind my AR-15. Both are controllable for her. But when you hear that freaking shockwave come off that AR-15 versus the PCC, it scares the piss out of her. Just audible noise, not that it's recoil, but the noise is very intimidating to her over the PCC. So if you have to get a child behind it, a young person behind it, your wife, whomever, um, that could be a benefit. But I'm not saying there's a wrong or right answer. Both of them are
Definitely.
great. Depends on what you're going to load it up with. Um, I would not, I would, and if you're using it for home defense on a PCC, I would definitely use hollow points. I wouldn't want full
Yep.
metal jackets flying, even in a regular home.
Yep.
They can fly through some doors and some windows, and you don't want stuff like that. However, 55 grain, 77 grain, 223, 556 can as well. But I don't know if there's a wrong or right answer. I would just say whatever you choose, definitely have a light on it so you can find out what you're
Yes.
shooting at. But I don't think there's a wrong or right answer. I just think as long as you have multiple points of contact, it can be a lot easier for other shooters or less advanced shooters than just holding a pistol out there for the majority of people. So
I agree. Yeah,
that would be
I definitely agree. PCCR rifle is going to definitely always be easier than, like I said, the shotgun. I know my wife, if she definitely was something going on, like I tell her, I said, Barry, just stay in the room, and
yep,
just point the rifle at the door. Don't go walk out. Don't do nothing. You know what I
yep.
mean? Just scare that person away.
Oh yeah, and I mean I would agree with that with the majority of people too, unless you have to go get children or do something. But
Right.
it
Yep.
depends on the person. If you've got everybody in the home, the more advanced person needs to be trying to get people back in your room,
Yep.
not the less advanced person. Um, and that brings up another valid point, and I've heard this argued both ways. If stuff was going down in your home, and I don't know if you have suppressors, okay, but this is something I want to ask the chat also. If you have suppressors, if you have them in your system, would you rather use suppressed in your home? Because I've heard it said both ways. Or would you have non suppressed in your home so all of your neighbors hear, hey, something's going on in this house, so call the police? What would you rather have, suppressed or non suppressed for that type of reason? Would you want to be the quiet person where you could just go around and pick off people? Or would you want loud noises flying to where those people may run off or people call the police for you?
That's definitely a good example. I personally don't have any suppressors, so I don't have experience in that. But man, sitting back now in that scenario and thinking about it, man, I don't want to blow my eardrums out, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
man, let's say I miss my shots or something happens or I have a failure and this guy gets in and gets on top of me, or maybe I get a shot off and I don't hit, or he surprises me in the middle of the night. Man, I hope someone hears something. I guess
Yeah.
that's a very catch-22. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. It is a weird, it's a weird scenario because, definitely you want to protect your hearing, your wife's, your kids, and all of that other stuff. I totally get it. And on my 300 blackout, I do run a 300 blackout for home defense
Mhm.
also. I don't like suppressor. Well, I have 22 suppressors for pistols, but I don't run 9 millimeter suppressors on my pistols. I'm just not a big fan of it personally. Um, but 300 blackout suppressed is super super quiet. I mean, it can be movie quiet with the correct grain of 220s or plus, but um, yeah, you could just walk around the house, to be great, and you could handle what you needed to handle. But if something did go down and there were 15 people trying to get in your house, yeah, you can take on 15 people, but I mean, you might want the noise to where your neighbors are calling, going, "Oh hell, there's a shootout over here."
Yeah,
I don't know. It's something I thought about, and I know other people have talked about it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I want to protect mine and my family's hearing, but it's like, I just don't know. I
yeah,
would, mine would be suppressed, but I'm not going to unscrew it and say, okay, let's go to work. But
right.
and
Yeah,
of course, even like 3B Lighters bringing up, shotguns. I mean, I've shot shotguns inside of a home too. It's not fun. It's friggin' loud. But yeah, Matt Moore, I don't think there's not a wrong or right answer. It's whatever you want to run and whatever you and your family are comfortable with. So that wasn't meant to, hey, let's, you know, when you said civil, I'm not going to be uncivil about anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely is a preference thing. Like even just thinking back a little bit of it now, I'm sure someone being shot at and shooting into a home, like they know they're coming in to rob somebody in their home, and they see a flash or they hear that bang. I mean, you can only imagine your first reaction is probably jumping, whatever you might have, your hands might go flying with it.
Yeah.
So that could be a factor, but it's definitely going to be. I mean, I'd say just grab whatever's near you.
Yeah.
When that happens, you never know how it's going to go down.
Yeah, and that's true. I will say this: whether it's a PCC, an AR-15, a 300 blackout, whatever it is, have a sling. So you can sling it up on yourself, and if you get in a struggle, they're not going to pull it.
Yep.
Just you're not going to hand it over to them. They're going to have to peel it off of you or really strip the sling off of you. So, or if you have to run out in the street and do work, you're running in your underwear. At least you've got a a damn sling on you. And lights. Keep a light on your home defense, whether it be a shotgun, pistol, whatever it is. You want to, you don't want your kid's friend to be walking in the front door. And yeah, you want to know what the hell you're aiming at or being able to see. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's and I mean I've shot tons of AR-15s, 300 blackout, all that stuff, and and I've said this numerous times to all my family members out there. If it's due time, I've got my Shorty 308 or I've got a 300 blackout. I do prefer 30 cal over 5.56/223. That's just my opinion. Both will do work, so that's not where I'm going with that. It's just you don't know if you're going to have to be shooting through a car door. You don't know what
Yeah.
in an urban environment. I'm saying if you're in your home, you know what you're dealing with, but you just don't know. So,
Yeah.
let's see here. This is a question for you. Brian Deshane is asking, Ark, do you have any luck with your DB9R cycling hollow points?
So I actually have a video on the DB9R, and on that video, I didn't shoot any hollow. And I actually had that question come up on somebody that asked me about it, and I was like, man, that's actually an interesting question. I didn't think of shooting hollow at that time, and I want to say I shot just one box because I don't have like a lot of hollow point to shoot out a ton like that. So I shot out one box. I actually ended up shooting it out with a Glock mag, and I shot out with a P mag. And the only thing that I noticed out of both of them was that the P mag just didn't lock back like at all whatsoever, no matter how many times with the defense. On a regular full metal jacket or whip, for some reason, it wouldn't. But on the Glock mag, I had no problem. And out of those 50 rounds at best, zero cycling problems.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's at least 50 through it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. But
and
everything else shoots it great, though.
yeah, and I will definitely agree with Indy Irish. Suppressed allows you to hear what's going on, and that's true. If you're having to give
Mm.
commands to your family like "stay the hell in that room," "do this," "do that,"
That's a
um,
good example there,
you
too.
know, it's definitely going to be easier to talk or whatever. Or if you've got 911 on the phone and you're yelling in the phone, I mean, it would definitely be better.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Lynn Holt saying loud, and noisy, wake up the neighbors, wake up all the dogs, make the dogs bark. Yeah, you definitely make some dogs bark.
Yeah. I always say that besides my firearms, man, I always have my dog. Her name's Athena. She's a German Shepherd, and she's the first one alert, man. She wakes us all up. If something's weird going on, boom, 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 she starts going off. So she's
Yeah.
always the first line.
Yeah, matter of fact, I was on the phone with Harry today. We've got two dogs. One of them is a little Chihuahua, and if she hears a leaf blow in the wind, she thinks somebody's at the front door, and I mean, she just goes into attack mode, and it's just like, holy crap, shut up. So,
Yeah.
great dog, but I mean, she can hear the noises you can't even hear. She's screaming at the door, thinking somebody's trying to come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It,
go
I,
ahead.
I try to train Athena because I have a little dog too that is like that, man. But it's funny because I've always trained Athena more because I've had her longest. They learn off each other, man. Because now they only both bark if it's something at that door for sure. Like if they hear like a thump in the back or like ultimately thumps door slamming, just anything nearby. Yeah, they're barking. And luckily they don't bark at just randomness, so that's good because I don't want it to be like a nuisance where you just constantly hear it and you're like, oh, she's fine.
Yeah,
We go back to sleep.
yeah, that's true too. Now, question for you: if you like everything that you do on your channel, okay, if you had to pick something you really enjoy, or I guess the number one thing you enjoy? Is it shooting, reviewing a gun in the camera, uh, different things? What do you like doing the most if you have to pick something as
Mm.
far as if you had to?
To be honest with you, it's I, definitely going to be down to shooting, but I like comparing a lot. I enjoy the differences of the firearms a lot. Man, it's pretty amazing how the CZ Shadow 2 feels and performs next to like something like the Staccato P, let's say, and then the fact that they're both so awesome and so accurate and so they feel so great in the hand. Completely different designs, completely different trigger systems. One single action, one double action, single action, and that's my favorite aspect is how these companies are able to like get so close to each other and just amazing performances, completely different, designs inside. And I think that's my favorite part about it, just shooting those different types.
That's cool. Yeah, and I enjoy comparisons. That's shooting and comparisons are me too. And reviewing it, talking about it, of course, because I've experienced the shooting on it, and I do enjoy comparing it to other firearms. And it could be, what's funny is I do this because I'm asked to do this. I get a lot of people say, "Hey, compare the staccato, your
Yeah,
staccato P to your Shadow 2."
yeah,
Okay, well, we know they're different trigger groups. We know they're different guns. So I'll do the comparison and I'll get people, "Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome. I really appreciate it." And then I'll get the guy that just says, those guns have nothing to do with one another. Why the hell would you compare them? That's like apples to oranges. And I'm like, dumb shit. I'm, for one, I was asked to do this because I have so many people asking. But for another, I like to do stuff where I'm maybe thinking outside of the box or I'm comparing a gun you would never think could possibly compare because, yeah, I mean, one you might not ever carry, the other one you might carry, but it's just fun to compare things. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I've compared some weird shit to other weird shit, but I enjoy doing it. So, and at the
yeah.
end of the
No,
day, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're okay. And I was gonna say, even going down to like comments like that, man. Yeah, those are. I sometimes I think to myself, I was like, man, like, are you actually like a fan of firearms, or are you just like a fanboy of like a particular brand, or like because even some of the questions that I get on there are like so rude. The
Yeah.
way that they say things, I'm like, oh man, I'm just not even gonna respond to this comment.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes if you see some weird comment, I'll just put carry on, yeah, I appreciate you leaving a comment. I don't want to argue with you, and sometimes I'll just argue with them. I don't give two shits. I do what I want. But, I just look at it as, it's my channel. I'll do what I want. I enjoy
Yep,
different things, and that's the way I run it. So,
yep,
but it is good to have feedbacks. And another thing that I like to do is and a lot of people would never do this, but you're comparing a double action, single action trigger to a, single action only trigger or a, striker fire or decocker or whatever, and that's the good thing that I noticed throughout your channel. You've got double action, single action, striker fire, you've got single action only. And I think that it's good for, I'm not saying an individual has to go out and buy all different guns or, but I think if they're familiar with each trigger and at least
yep,
has shot it or tried it or experienced it, if something happened and you had to
yep.
grab that thing, at least you would know how to use it. So,
I 100% agree. And then I know there's always a lot of philosophy like in training in regards like, oh, you should definitely train with your one firearm and be proficient with your one firearm. And to be honest with you, I mean, and I'm sure it's the same thing with you, Big J. I'm sure your main primary firearm you've literally fired so much that you're very proficient with it to the point where you can hop right over to another pistol that you're not as proficient with, and you can ultimately fire it really well as well, and you can hop right back to yours and have no problem. And that's a factor where like you've become proficient with your firearm, and you've now branched and you're continuing to learn more of other firearms because
yeah,
but that might not be the firearm you'll have forever.
right. And I want to ask, and that is a good point too. And I wanted to ask you this because, I'm new to your channel and things like that. Okay. You've shot iron guns,
Yep.
just regular irons, and you've shot dots, you know, in your opinion. And just so y'all know, I made it a point when I talked to Ark prior to this chat. And since I've talked to him, I didn't give him a question list. I told him straight up, I'm not going to even ask you a question now because we're going to do it live. So I hear it just like they hear it. There's no prepping. Um,
Yep.
and so just so y'all know this, but irons or dot, which do you
One
prefer? Which do you prefer and why?
100% is going to be a dot.
Okay.
Easily. It is just so much faster to, and I will say this like I tell everybody, when you first put a dot on, it's just training. You have to continuously work on your draw because it's going to take a little bit of work to find that dot. It always is. And when I first got my dot, it was the same way. But once you got that nailed down, it is so incredibly fast how you can just ultimately just put that dot on something and take that shot and be very accurate with it. As long as you have decent grip and you don't have like your finger all the way in the trigger or something where you're like striking with your knuckle or something like that. As long as you have decent hold and a decent trigger placement, with a dot it's just very easy to find. I think irons are great too though. But man, I shoot so much faster with a dot, so
Yeah.
much faster. And there's even stuff like the ACCS Vulcan reticles. If you have a hard time finding your dot, that's perfect. You can go right to Hollow Sun. They have that big old ring, and when you point out if you can't find your dot, that ring tells you ultimately where to go, and that's a great tool you can use to like get yourself into dots ultimately.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I know Pistol. I haven't seen Pistol Pete, so I don't know if he's on the chat tonight, but I have that Vulcan reticle too,
It's
and
awesome.
and I know Pistol Pete is a big believer in it because you can have that huge circle and it gets you right back on. I mean, if you see that weird ring, you're like, okay, your brain just goes, move it down, move it up,
Yep.
move it this. It is definitely, I would call it a training aid. But when you
Exactly.
even get familiar with that dot, you can turn that training aid off on the same dot. So
Yep.
I do highly recommend that. Some people, and I will say this, and I don't know, do you have an astigmatism?
So bad, and that's actually why I don't no longer own an ACCS reticle because that it looks like the Eiffel Tower in front of me. Like it's just blocking my
Okay.
whole view.
Okay. And see, I have dual stigmatism too. And I will say this, if I crank it up on the intensity on the chevron, I can see sometimes two chevrons, and everybody has a different
Yeah.
astigmatism. So not all eyes are the same. But, sometimes like if I turn it down towards the normal brightness, it's actually more clear than some of my dots. Some of the dots I'll get some blistering, or I won't have a nice crisp dot. I'll have three little dots, or like a
Right.
little, just a little conglomerate, like a little flower. But I look at it this way: I'll find the hot spot of that blister,
Yep.
and that's now my new dot. So I'll throw that blister on you, and that's where we have to do work. But, I find, and I want to ask you this. Okay, so you shoot dots, shoot dots, shoot dots. How is it when you go back to irons? Like if you try an iron gun.
Right. So I actually came just it was just probably like I just maybe 2 weeks ago when I did the review on the X macro, and I didn't have I was gonna put the dot on it first. I was gonna put this hollow sun I have on my bull, but I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that because that's actually my wife's gun and it's set as is and it gets taken everywhere. So it's zero in style. I don't want to mess with. So I was like, you know what, let me just take it the way that it is. And yeah, well, first of all, the macro is a little shorter, so that it's such a shorter point of view, and I was able to take my shots, but I was not able to take them as accurately or as fast. It just wasn't happening. But I'm sure that if I was to continue to stay with that, I would increase it right back up to how I used to be. But I just still feel like that dot is so much faster.
It
It's
is,
just so
and
much
that's
quicker.
and that's where I was going to say go with this. You just like, okay, you shoot a dot good, you've gotten used to it, you're faster with it, and all that stuff. Why the hell would you go back? I mean, you know,
Yes.
if you ultimately had to, and you've got backup sights, backup iron sights on your gun. If your dot failed, you've got your backup sights, so you're still there. And I'll tell you another thing, and I've said this many times. I have some guns that have no sights on them, but they have a dot. You know,
Yep.
what I've done is I've completely turned the dot off. Like I even on one video I took the battery out of it, so I just wanted to prove to everybody, hey, this dot doesn't work. But I'm so used to shooting that gun that I know where the dot's going to be, and I use the frame of the RMR, so it's or not RMR of the red dot, so it's the frame to put it on the target, and you know where the dot's going to be because you've looked through that damn thing so many times. So you frame your item that's out there, whatever the target is, and you can still shoot damn good with just a little box that's there.
Yes, you can.
So a lot of
Yes, you
people
can.
don't. a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh, if my dot went down or my glass broke out, man, you can still make it work if you're used to shooting dots. And
Yes.
I've got iron sighted guns, and I even had one on video where I'm shooting a shield and the front sight just flies off on video. And I'm like, what the hell? So, and I just point shooted or continue to point shoot through the whole video and still shot it great because, you've got that, you just know you've got that point down. You've done it so many thousands of times that, my grip is the same, whatever gun I'm shooting, pistol wise. So now you can have a little bit of up or a little bit of down, depending on the Glock angle or a 1911 angle, whatever it might be. But you're either going to hit them here or you're going to hit them here. So it's,
Right.
you can still make it work. But
Yep. And going back to what you were saying, because I've always, when I talk to people about this thing, or I tell them, or like they're looking for a first firearm, I always say, hey man, you should always look for them. You make sure you put a light, and even if you're not going to go an optic off the bat, get an optic ready one for the future because you never know. You know what I mean? And not only that, like resale value, people always want optic ready models. You know what I mean? And like you were just saying a second ago, how you had a front sight fly off of you. I've literally had something similar like that happen where like my iron flew off. So a lot of people will fault the dot and say, hey, what happens if your dot go out? I'm like, your iron could literally go out just how we just had the discussion. And then you're just left with your dot.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a vice versa. Anything can malfunction on you.
Oh yeah. It's just like a car could break down on you.
Yep.
Shit happens, but it's how you're going to react to it.
Yep.
So if you've got a point shoot or whatever, and that's why I say if you just come up and bring the gun to your eyesight and not turtle down,
Yeah.
You can make a lot of shit work. And I've just experienced it with, or ran through these little scenarios with myself, turning the dot off, taping the dot on the back and the front, just
Mm-hmm.
trying different things to say, okay, could I, do this if I
Yeah.
had to? And I think that's good to experience.
Yep. And like you said, when you look down the line, and if you do have backup irons and you're used to that firearm on a regular basis, you'll know that your irons sit right here, and that's it, that dot goes out. You know that stop would have always sat anytime you've been shooting like 1/3 coat to your iron. So when you point out and you're like, my dot's gone, but your irons are there. When you've been shooting it like that for a long time, that firearm, you know that your shot's still going to be like right on point because you're familiar with your firearm. You're familiar with your optic, and you're familiar with your irons and your dot.
Yeah. And, I think if, you in the dots, like the old dots, way back in the day, they weren't as good as they are now. They're all getting better. And there's different quality dots. You can have cheap stuff now currently, and you can have better stuff or stuff that you've proven to yourself. But I will say this, and I've heard this many, many times. People are saying, oh, my dot flew off, or my bolts sheared, or something like that. And they're prone to that on the MOS system, the Glock system. I know that. But if you've gotten it milled, and I will say this, knocking on wood, I always clean the threads, clean the plates, or do all that stuff, put the Loctite on, let it dry, crank it down. I use the proper torque, which is like 15 pounds per hollow sun. I believe I have it documented in my fat wrench box, but I always use a fat wrench, and I think Trigicon's 18 inch pounds, but I've got everything documented, written down. So I torque it properly. I mark them with a paint pen. I've got several of them, golds, silvers, whites, all that. So that way I can always watch it. I have never had a dot come off, ever, never come loose, ever. And I've been shooting dots for, 3 years only now. So, but I've seen some fly off, and some of them are MOSs where they sheared it because that system just can't handle it. But, also people don't invest in a damn torque wrench. Those fat wrenches are $50, $48.
Yeah.
It's like,
worth it.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. People are like, oh, I got it tight enough. Well, sometimes you over tighten it because trust me, I've got the Gorilla torque if I need it.
And that's a problem in itself.
Yeah, you over tighten it, you're going to weaken the bolt, you're going to snap it. So head's going to pop right off. So it's like, just do your due diligence, set it up the first time, and you just don't have anything to correct later. Now, stuff can happen. You could bang it on a fence post and shear stuff off. But with most of the mounts now, the way that they're built, you've got supports in there to where you could bang it, and it's not moving the dot back to where it's going to shear the screws off. So, and this is yeah, this isn't a dot chat. I'm not trying to mean that, but it's like I get, and I'm sure you do too. I get it all the time. It's like, man, you don't need a dot, blah blah blah. Dots are overrated and stuff. And I'm like, have you tried one? And they're like, well, yeah, I did for a week. And it's like, man, I mean, there is a learning curve to them. You got to give them
Yes.
a little time. So,
I,
but
I don't know how many light switches in random spots on the wall I've practiced my draw on to like get that dot on point, man. I mean, it is. Sometimes I would just sit there on my desk doing things, dude. I just look up and I see my post and I'm like, poof, the head,
yeah,
poof, the light switch, and it's
yeah,
just constant practice. And I'm telling you right now, it's you just got to keep doing it, and it becomes second nature. Like I said, I was timing myself on my last video. How quickly I was able to take my shots is something I've never really done like that in detail. Mainly because I didn't have the right opportunity in places and things like that. And I finally had a chance to go to a range where I was able to do so. And all the training I've been doing at home and at the indoor ranges and things like that, I was literally at 12 yards as a CC Shadow 2, and the plate was like 6 to 8 inch plate from 12 yards, and I was literally 1.49, 1.5 something, literally like a second, like 1.5 second shot, no problem. And I'm not professionally trained in any way, shape, or form. This is just practicing at home.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I will say this, since you have an astigmatism, I have an astigma or two astigmatisms. I'm sure you probably have two also. I will say this, if your dot is blurry, a little blurry,
Mhm.
if you put one of these little bad boys on there and the light can bounce off the wall or bounce off a fence or bounce off of something, a light will actually clear the dot completely up for 99% of the people. So
Yep,
when they say, "Oh, those dots are, blistery or whatever," put a damn flashlight on it and light it up, and then check your dot, and it clears right up.
yep,
And
yep,
I've proven that to people, proven it to myself, and said, and I get a lot of questions: why the hell do you run a light on your dot guns, or why do you run a flashlight on there, an X300 or a 7A or whatever? That is another one of the reasons.
yeah. Yeah, and if you honestly, if you have astigmatism and you go and you shoot outside, you'll notice the sunlight. You're like,
Yeah,
my dot's so clear out here.
yeah,
It's yeah, it's exactly that exact reasoning right there. And you
yeah,
know, it's funny. I saw your last video too, where you mentioned that you use those glasses to help you. Same thing. I have particular glasses that when I pop those on, I may look funny,
yeah,
but they clear that dot up so good. It's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, and Matt Moore's even saying, that the dots are the future. I mean, hell, dots are present and the future. I mean, the way, as far as I'm considered, or as far as I'm
Definitely,
concerned,
definitely.
I've had people argue with me and all that, and I'm just like, man, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I mean, you do what I'm not your daddy. You do what you want to do. But I'm just saying, if you haven't truly invested the time in it, don't knock it until you don't know what you don't know. Because when you really put the time in on it, it's so much faster. Your upright shooting, you can see, you've got
Yeah,
your whole peripheral, you can see all the bad guys. You don't have to like stare at your front sight like what I've done for freaking 40 plus years of my life, or 45 years of my life. You know, it's just so much easier, so much faster. Because when I go back to irons, I'm definitely slower, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I don't have my close up glasses on, so because my eyesight is not that great like it used to be. As you get older, you get a little bit of a shake. I'm not as accurate as I used to be because I've got a slight tremor. Um, got arthritis, had it since I was 30. So, anything you can have as an advantage, why not use it like a comp? You know, I think comps
uh,
are a big advantage on a lot of
definitely.
guns.
I don't understand the people that like I've had because I have a couple of my videos. I have a lot of comp guns, and I think they're like absolutely amazing. And I have some people on there that literally like rag on me on like, why do you need a comp on a 9 mil? It has no recoil. I'm like, first of all, the 9 mil definitely has recoil. Like you can physically see recoil on the video, and adding a comp is literally reducing your recoil. I love compensators.
Yeah,
As long as you make sure that yours works well for your farm and it's working with all the ammos you're running, because you really want to make sure the ammo works well on it. Man, comps are an amazing thing, and anybody that gets a chance to shoot like the Staccato XC, they'll know immediately off the rip. They're like, holy smokes,
yeah,
this thing is one flat gun.
yeah. It is, and I know you ran the threat cadres too. I really like them. I run them
Yes,
on mine. I had
yes,
great luck with them. No failures. They run anything.
zero.
You know, and they definitely keep it flat. Y'all have seen my videos. And I'm not putting an extra tight grip on it or any of that thing. If anything, you can actually loosen your grip a little bit if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's and I okay. As far as dots, I will say this, and you might not be guilty of it, but I am. Uh, I can adjust a dot, I can do all that stuff, but I will say this: I get to where okay, this little adjustment is perfect. It's perfect enough, put it that way. But then I pick the dog shit out of it to where I'm like, okay, it's got to be, I mean, it's got to be like a laser. I mean, you know, I want all the dots or all the holes right here, you know, and a lot of that has to do with your grip and everything else. But I will over analyze an adjustment on a dot till it drives me fucking, or excuse my language, but it drives me freaking crazy. I will over analyze it. Are you that way, or you just set it and you're good?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm identical. And not only am I anal about it, anytime I go to the range, for some reason, I feel like I need to recheck the zero, even though I know it's zeroed.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I do that. I just want to make sure, because the last thing you want to do is start taking a bunch of shots. You're like, I'm off, I'm off, I'm off. And then you're like, my zero's off.
Yeah.
So
Or
yeah, I am the same way for some reason.
yeah.
I just want to make sure it's shooting straight ultimately, and nice droops. Like I don't want like, because trust me, your dot's gonna tell you take 3, 4 shots, and you're like, my grouping's here, and you're
Yeah.
like, what the heck?
Yeah. You know, and like I just overanalyze it. Or I'll say, I mean, I'll be, you know, hitting exactly where I'm aiming. And I'll be like, okay, I need to do one slight adjustment. And then I'll do that. And then all of a sudden it, you know, it moved a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I need to move this back too. Then I need to go up one. And then all of a sudden it's like moved from here to here. And I'm like, what the hell? And, you know, it's like, you need to stop, you know, and sometimes I'm
Yeah.
even like, you know, like I'll get it all adjusted and then I'll have Humble check it. And, you know, I'll say, Humble, verify this dot for me. Just give me your opinion. He'll be like, yeah, it's balls on or whatever. And I'm just like, I know, but it's just a little. And I'm just like, God dang, I need to quit doing that crap. It drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
One thing I have like a really like a favorite, one of my favorite YouTubers is also like Sage Dynamics, and I'm sure a lot of people know about Sage
Yeah,
Dynamics,
he's one
but
of my favorites too.
yeah, he has. I always, when you hear him say he like zeros his dots, he always says that he zeros it like on something still to where he eliminates human error. I
Yep.
definitely recommend that. Like, see if you can find like a chair, a bag, so you can put your wrist on, and you can eliminate that human factor error, so you can get the most accurate shot. So then, ultimately, when you make your adjustments, you're not wondering if it's you or if it's the dot or if it's the ammo, and you're not really sure. You know?
Yeah, and guess who's guilty of just that thing right there? I'll adjust it and I'll shoot it free-handed, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna bag this thing, and I'm just like, God dang it, you know? Yeah, that's me. So
Yeah, I have to do that because I'll do the same thing as you. It's constant adjustment, constant adjustment, constant adjustment. I'm just like, man, I don't know if it's me, the trigger, my trigger finger. I'm not quite sure where I'm making the mistake. And
yeah,
some,
and like
and then when I put it still is when I realize I'm like, oh, it's just a dot. I'm a little
yeah,
off.
yeah, and like Bald's saying, you know, zero your dot off bags or a stand, and he's exactly right. But sometimes I'll get this in my head where I'm like, you know, I can really grip the shit out of a gun and blah blah blah, and I'll talk myself into not bagging it, and I just need to bag the damn thing and call it a day. But sometimes and that's the thing. I will say this. Okay, at the, you know, Texas Gun Experience and stuff like that, they have those stands, you know, where you can put your guns and all that crap
Yep.
on. Well, I'm tall, so even if I get on my knees and I, you know, bag that thing, I'm having to do this behind the, you know, it's like it's like it's not still not tall enough for me, and it's like I feel like I'm laying on the damn ground in order to bag it. So, or you know what I mean. So, but I just need to work through it. And hell, when you and I shoot, I might have you just like, hey, put a second eye on this one right here and see what you think. And
Yeah.
because I'm just like, God dang, it just drives me crazy. I overanalyze things. Um, you know, and it's just that mechanical brain where I'm just like, hey, I can even get it tighter or better or whatever. But
Yeah. No,
now,
I'm the same way. If I don't get my if it's not in, if my 3 shots are in that red bullseye, like pretty much at least 6 in a row. Ultimately, is what when I have it zeroed at 3, and I'm like, oh, those 3 are good. I take the last 3, and if those stay in there without like, and I will take my sweet time. If they're in there, then I'm comfortable with it. But
yeah,
as soon as I start straightening off, no, I definitely have like a limit. Like it has to be in there.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
I can tell when, like sometimes I'll, go a little bit left and right, and my boogaboo sometimes, and it's due to a little bit to arthritis, but I'm not trying to place a blame, but I will get weak with my left hand. My right hand
Yeah.
always stays strong, always. But wrapping it around it, where you're really cranking them together like a vice, I will weaken my left hand, and I can tell it. And I'm just like, crap, tighten up your left hand, dummy. I know what to do. It's just sometimes you're just going through the motions, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. Hey, what's up, Fuzz Fork? How are you? Um,
I have one question for you, Big J,
yes,
real quick.
yes.
Out of the firearms in your collection, what are your two favorite triggers that you have in your collection so far? Firearms that have the best triggers.
Um, on well, let's just say rifles. If I go to rifles, I really like what is it, CMG triggers, and
Mm,
I love hyperfire triggers. Um, those are probably my two favorite there. And then on pistols, I really love the Atlas triggers for 2011s and 1911s. Atlas triggers are my favorite triggers. I like the medium flat. I don't like a curved trigger on a 1911 2011 because I have these big long gorilla fingers, and on a curved trigger, it pulls my finger farther back. So rather than just having it at the pad, where if I have the reach of the trigger, like a medium flat, I can get that perfect point all the time. But if the trigger's curved, it pulls my finger farther back, and it can, I mean, I can compensate for it, but I can pull a shot a little left. Not usually low and left, like what, if you're hookers where they're really hooking it around there, that's what you'll
right.
see when I watch people shoot. But I don't really have that problem, but it does mess me up quite a bit. But probably Atlas triggers for pistols. I really do like the Apex triggers for a lot of the polymer guns, and even my Shadow 2 has an Atlas trigger in it, their Shadow 2 version trigger or kit. But I'd probably say Apex. I mean, they're all drop safe, so you don't have to worry about that. I've played
Yeah.
with some triggers that weren't drop safe before, but all of the Atlas ones, or excuse me, all of the Apex ones are. So they might not be the lightest, but I know ways to make them lighter, which doesn't make them drop safe, but you can. Like my Shield 9mm and my Shield 45, they both have like 3.5 pound triggers, and people freak out when I say that. They're like, "What?"
Mm,
And I'm
that's
like,
not bad.
"Yeah, but
I don't think that's much to freak out about. That's dude. I mean, I have a Glock 43X with like a 7 pound trigger, and it's like this little tiny gun, but it's like I'm pulling an elephant through.
yeah,
And then the shots like, and then, and it's a little gun. So, they're snappy. I don't care what anybody says. To me, that 43X can be a little snappy. And then with that heavy trigger pull and such a lightweight gun, it's going to make a hard shot.
yeah, and it's a tiny gun, so you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you're trying to wrap meat hooks around it, it's like there's nothing to hang on to, and there's nothing to get the second palm. There's no grip, or you've got this hand
Yeah.
wrapped all the way around it, so there's no space to get a big-handed person like me. But a lot of people don't have those
Yeah.
problems. But on most of
That's,
my guns, I do prefer, like, all of my AR triggers are usually about 3.5 pounds. I do prefer them, and I'm a single stage guy. I don't like a double stage, not personally. So I'm a single stage guy on AR triggers or rifle triggers. And on pistols, I kind of like a 3.5 to 4.5 is really about my max. But I have some that are 2.5 pounds, and I've had lighter. I've carried lighter, but some people freak out when I go, "Yeah, I carried a 1.5 pound trigger." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "You don't put your finger on the bang switch; it doesn't go off." But
yeah. And
yeah,
that was the thing with like my Bull Armory SAS2, that trigger on there. I remember when I was first using it, I was like, man, this thing almost feels like my XC. Like it's pretty crazy.
yeah,
But it has a palm safety. You have the slide safety on there. And when you go out shooting this little firearm, that light trigger, you're going to realize like, oh man, this trigger is really nice. My shots are nice and crisp because you're not having to create this excessive amount of weight to pull in that could ultimately, make your hand movement go off and take your shot off.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing you say that. Most of my 1911s and 2011s all have pinned rear safeties, grip safeties, because I hate them. My hand just doesn't fit some of them. Some of them it
Mhm.
will. The only one that's not pinned is my DS9 hybrid, my big one, because the way that it's cut, my hand just grabs it perfect every time. But 90% of 1911s and 2011s, that doesn't work for me. So I just pin them
Mhm.
down and I use the manual safety. Um, but I grew up shooting 1911s. So my normal grip is, like if you'll ever watch me shoot a striker fire gun, I come up and it's like this on the striker fire. You'll see the right thumb go down the side even of the striker fire. And there's no safety there, but it's just
Right. That
ingrained into
habit.
me. Yeah,
Yep.
but that's not a bad thing. It's because if there was one there, I'm going to hit it. So
Yep.
that's kind of because I've had people go, "What the hell are you doing with your thumb? Why do you drag it down the side?" And I'm like, grew up shooting 1911, so
Because
if I
this, because the slide lock's missing where I rested
yeah,
usually.
yeah, I was like, "Where's my thumb? Where's my thumb rest?" Because that's what I do is I activate it and then I just ride it.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, Bald and Curious is saying Trigger Tech on an AR, and honestly, I've seen Trigger Techs. I haven't personally tried them, but I don't do a lot of long range stuff. I know that those do really shine with those, but I don't really have any experience with Trigger Tech. I'm sure they're great triggers. Like I said, there's so many triggers out there. It's whatever you prefer, and I've got tons of different brands. I just don't have any Trigger Techs. Oh, and I do. I'll take that back. There is another trigger I really like on ARs, and it's what is it? The Rain. I think it's the Rain. I've got a few of those, and they're great triggers too. I've never had a problem with them. So I think it's called a Rain. Pretty sure. But now, as far as like, do you think that? I mean, if you have to pick, and obviously I know already, but if you have to pick, would you say that you're more of a pistol person or a rifle person or a combination of both? If you have to pick something to shoot,
Um,
what would it be?
I I like them both. I want to say equally, but the situation of it is that I will use my pistol a lot more. I take it around with me everywhere. It's just easier to take around. And if something was to happen, I'm not going to be like running back to my truck to pull out my rifle. I'm going to be concealing my pistol. So I want to say I'm more of a pistol person. But I also don't have like a lot of rifles, and I need to work my way into that. But definitely, I would say a pistol person for sure. I have a
Well, we
lot of
can get
pistols.
we can get you squared away. I've got plenty you can try out and see what you think about them. We'll get you into some 300 blackout, 308, all that stuff. See what you think.
Yes, that would
But
be amazing.
yeah, and also if y'all just tuned in or whatever, this is Arkz Guns. His Please go over and subscribe to him in his channel on this chat here at the top is his link. You can subscribe to him or in the description of this video. So that way you can go over and subscribe to him. But he's got a good channel, got a lot of nice guns, some custom stuff too. I saw some of his custom paint jobs and I was like, damn, some of those are very familiar looking. So I was like, yeah, we got some stuff in common. So that's how we
Yeah,
kind of met up and stuff like that. And like I said, I wanted to have him on. I think y'all will enjoy his content. He's pretty much down to earth, just a normal guy. Not trying to produce movies or anything like that. Keeps it pretty real. And
yeah.
I appreciated some of his videos, and I was like, hey, this is a guy that I can relate with. Probably other people can relate with. And but if you have to, like, have you thought, like, is there a gun? I guess if you have to pick, whether it's a rifle, pistol, shotgun, whatever, is there something out there that you're just like really, really wanting?
Yes, I'm gonna
Okay.
sound like a total fanboy right here, but I really want something like a Knight's Armament or an LMT.
Okay.
My God, are they expensive?
Right.
But
Really.
I only hear amazing things about them. Radeon, that's another amazing. Like the Model Ones are amazing. There's a couple of those up there. The the Gerard Thumb videos that he makes when he freezes the guns and puts it in mud. Those are always really interesting videos, and that's one of the reasons why I want to go with like an IWI Galil Gen 2. Because dude, he had this. I mean, we're talking about like operator military firearms that he owns. His channel's amazing, huge, and he's performed these tests. And within there, he's got a couple of smaller guys like the IWI. And dude, that gun performs in there every single time in a lot of his tests. And I'm like, man, that's a gun I need to get my hands on. It's a great gun for the price. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
seems to perform well. He has high rank counts through it. and it just runs every time. Frozen, mud, water, whatever, it just
Yep.
goes.
Yeah, I've played with one of those. I haven't shot it, but I played with one of those at Texas Gun Experience. And the only thing is it's pretty damn beefy.
Yeah.
It's a thick boy, as far as weight. But it definitely IMI. I mean, hell, they've got battle proven stuff. I mean, they definitely know what they're doing. But you could tell it was, I mean, heavy, but you could tell it probably wasn't going to let you down. I mean, it definitely had some stuff. And yeah, LMTs are nice. I mean, Knights Armaments are super nice, and they're definitely proud of them.
Yeah.
But now as far as a pistol, is there a pistol out there that you've really been kind of slobbering over?
Hmm.
And
I
if there's not, there's not. But
Well, I wouldn't say slobbering over. I pretty much have a lot of, like I don't own every 2011, but I have a lot of variations of different kinds of 2011 and dual stack 1911s. And, when you start to dabble in different types of 2011s, which you have as well, you start to realize not like very similar performances, but you'll know that there are some things that perform the same. There are some finishes difference in how tight they are in their groups and how they're done. But you start to realize how they start to perform. So you're not like, okay, this is how roughly most 1911s of this price range and risk punch will be. Like something like an XC. I mean, you've watched lots of videos like people compare the XC to the Sand Viper and the TRS comp, and you'll notice that like three separate price points, and all two are performing around the same price range.
yeah,
So right now, I feel like I have a good array of understanding of like where firearms are going to be and perform at a certain price range. But one that I've always that I always wanted, man, it just slips me every time I get a chance to get one is the Cajun Gunworks ZZ, the PO1s, like the
okay,
Glock 19 size. I would love one of those optic ready.
yeah,
Anytime I see a video on them, they look like they're amazing little firearms,
yeah,
and it's like a mini Shadow 2 Cajunized,
it is.
and that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've shot some tricked out PO1s. I've owned PO1s. The only thing for me is they're too short in the grip. I love the gun. It shoots great, but they're just not hand friendly for me. But for 99% of people, highly recommend the gun. And you're right. You can put a flat Shadow 2 trigger or a flatter Shadow 2 trigger in it, so you don't have that curved trigger. You can trick them out. I mean, and it literally is like a mini Shadow 2.
Yeah,
So I mean, they're fabulous guns. I highly recommend them. And they'll take the big, CZ mags or the shorties.
yeah,
So there's a lot for that gun price, and even tricking it out, it's going to cost you some money. But there's a lot of advantage to that gun. I really do
yep,
enjoy the gun. Matter of fact, I sold mine to one of my subscribers, and he loves it. He tricked it all out with CZ Custom, and he loves that gun.
yeah.
But I
I just feel
go
I
ahead.
feel like that gun is also very underrated. A lot of
It
people
is.
will quickly hop right over to like a Sig or a Glock, and man, they're not even realizing that this is like a whole steel little Glock 19 it's gonna
Yeah.
feel really good when you shoot it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And if you've shot a PO7, now this is one thing for me, okay, and it has a lot to do with the hand size and getting that pinky, because on a PO1 I can't get my pinky on it very good without an extension. But with between the PO7 and the PO1, me personally, I shoot the PO7 better just because I can get more hand on it, more grip on it. But like I said, I'm not taking anything away from that PO1. It's a great gun, and I do think a lot of people they're like, oh, that gun's been out for a long time, and they kind of overlook it. And I want to get your opinion on this question, and we'll kind of wrap it up. But okay, on your polymer guns,
Yeah.
you have a bunch of polymer guns. I have them too. Okay, and there's latest and greatest, or the next polymer gun that's coming out is going to be the savior of everything. Do you feel, and honestly, just tell me your opinion, do you think that, like, the next polymer gun, I know we've got the X Macro out now too, but do you think one polymer gun is very similar to another polymer gun, or do you think there's a lot of differences in a lot of different polymer guns?
The To be honest with you, no, I don't think there's going to be a lot of differences. I think in design one, yes, like for example, Sig's got their modularity with their, how you're able to take it apart and ultimately like turn it from a little gun to a big gun because you just change frames and slides out. So
Yeah,
you'll have like those particular changes inside. But in regards to performance, I have the Sig P320, I have a Glock 19. I got all kinds of stuff. I literally have like 16, 17 pistols.
Yeah.
And to me, and like the X Macro, and I'll use it as a good example. Like the X Macro is an $800, $850 firearm. It comes with a somewhat, pre-comped system on it. You know what I mean? It's actually a really awesome design, and it does work pretty well. But when you're firing that gun, and you're gonna realize, like, if you hop right over to like my Walther PDP, and the Walther PDP has a nicer trigger, slightly different designs. It will have a lot of higher forces, but as you're firing, you're gonna realize that like the recoil is very similar and the performance is very similar. There's not really much of it's not a huge gap. I think it's gonna be a lot of preference in what you're looking for. I think if you want your first comp gun and you want something super light, and like, for example, the X Macro, super skinny, because I don't think it's like the smallest, to be honest with you. It's literally not as small as I would say people say, but it's very skinny. And you want something like that, go that route, but don't be surprised if you grab a Walther PDP and you're like, oh, it's very similar, because it does feel very similar.
Yeah. Now, if you have to pick, and this is the first question I've asked a guest, but if you have to pick a carry pistol size, okay, you got the macro, macro slims, you got the compact, and you got the full size to carry. What's your favorite out of those three?
If I can comfortably carry the full size, I would always recommend a full size, because you're just going to get such great performance out of it, But weight is a big factor for a lot of people, and that it's going to immediately deter them off of that factor. And it is something that deters me as well, because I'm a bigger guy. So like, if I was to try to sit down with my XC, I mean, like, it's going to be like slapping me up here, It's just such a big gun. But I would say definitely something in the size of. I really do think that the best performance literally starts at like the Glock 19s and higher. Anything in that size where you can get a full grip and you're getting a decent sized length, you're gonna get like the medium recoil, and you can start to perform. Like, if you become proficient, you'll realize that with that Glock 19, you can almost perform almost like the size of a full size gun. Yeah. And I can't say that with like the micros. I know some of them are amazing. Like the Bull Armory is I wouldn't say a full micro, but it's a 3.25-inch barrel. It's a small little slide on that thing, and that performs very close to like larger guns, but not a lot of guns are going to give you that. And usually, to get into something like that, it's going to be a lot of money. Staccato CS is one of them, where it's a very small gun that performs very well, and it's just not a lot of firearms that can do that. So unless you can get yourself into something like that, I think like the 43Xs and all those are just going to be, for me, a little too snappy. But some people can shoot them well. Yeah. And I want something that I know that I'm confident with. Confidence is very important when you have a gun, because if you take your gun out and you're like, I've never shot this well before. Oh my gosh, can you imagine that scenario? And you don't shoot it good? I would never want to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're not just at the range, a stagnant range, just going bang, bang, bang. You're there to rip it and get it going. And so basically it's compact for you, and that's kind of my answer too. Compact is pretty much the smallest I'll carry. Now, I've got a Shield, Shield 45, but they've got +2, so I've got the extra length. But it's definitely compact for me, because like the C2, like we've talked about, the C2 to me really feels like a bigger gun. My P10C, it feels like a bigger gun, and if you really kind of put it over a Glock 19, it's a little bigger in the slide and a little bigger in the grip. Not much, but width's about the same. But I would be more comfortable, and I know a lot of people can't carry that type of gun, or they could, but they don't want to dress around it, or maybe they have to tuck their shirt in all the time. So I totally get it. But yeah, I would want a compact, because those little bitty baby guns, nothing wrong with them.
Nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, average hand people. But for me, the way that I look at it, and I've done this and I've proven it to myself, I don't have to do a video on it, but I'm in my office, I'm checking it. So I'll put it in the holster, and I'll hold my hands up or keep my hands down, whatever. And, I'll set my timer. I've got a shot timer. I'll set it and it goes beep. And I, grab with this hand to rip it, to just go down and grab it and get it out real quick. And I recommend doing this unloaded when you're newly starting out. But I'll go to rip that thing out of there. And on those little guns, I'll miss the damn grip, because they're just so freaking small. They're just too short. They don't work for me. And I'm like, nope. And I mean, I've missed, like on the little SIG, what was it, the 365 and all that stuff, man, piss on that. There's no way I could even, I missed that grip like 7 out of 10 times. I'm just like, nope.
Yeah.
So you've got
I
to know yeah, you can carry any gun, but if it comes beep time, can you get that sucker out and go to work? And if
yeah,
I can't, I don't want it. It does
yeah.
no good for me.
That's why I've never actually gotten one of those like B3 besides the X Macro because the grip is larger. Outside of that, I've never really gone with those because the grip is so small. I'm only two fingering it or two
Yep.
fingering or three fingering it. They're snappy. And like I've told you, I'm actually like a decent shot. I'm not like the best shot. I have a decent shot. But even with those, even when I'm bagged, sometimes I even feel like they're just not as accurate.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it just doesn't give me the confidence, and I'm not as proficient with it. So it's just compacts. I've always fired them perfect, and it's
Yeah.
just really worked great for me.
And that's the thing. I think it's confident in carrying. Now, a lot of people can carry anything, but it's
Yeah,
confident in carrying. And if you had to deploy that thing, could you go to work? Do you feel comfortable in what you had to do with it? If you had to take a longer shot, would you feel comfortable in doing that? There's just a lot of things I think people just, oh, it's a small gun, I'm going to grab it, or I'm going to buy that one.
right.
And I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong. There's no wrong
No,
or right answer to this. It's just for me, when I really put it through the test, it's just like, no, this
yeah,
just doesn't work for me. And you're
that's
right.
it.
The XL, now here's where I think about the X Macro. And I'm going to shoot his. I haven't shot one yet, but I am going to shoot his. He's going to bring it when we do this. So I'm going to officially try it. But, it does have the longer grip, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing. However, one thing that just in my brain, and I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but with that shorter, what is it, a 3.1, barrel, it's
Yeah,
like, okay, you are losing velocity, but I mean, I'm probably not going to take a 50-yard shot, and I hope I don't ever have to, but it's like, you are going to lose some velocity. Um, is that the end all be all? No, but I do prefer a longer slide, even if it's a 5-inch slide, but with a compact grip, like a Glock 19X. So, or not, I'm sorry, not a 19X. I do prefer, a bigger grip, but at least a 4-inch slide, just at
yeah,
least. Um, like if that X macro was comped on the end, I think that would, or like a X macro with an XL slide. It doesn't even have to be comped, but just I would just feel better about having a little bit longer barrel, you know.
yeah.
But I mean, they're both. It's going to shoot fine. Most of your shots are going to be 7 to 10 yards. I understand all that, but I don't know because what I run into is when I run that long thumb, down that slide, my left thumb down that slide. I mean, on a regular 365, my thumb, and I've proven this, my thumb is at the end of the freaking barrels. Like I had burn
Yeah,
marks on the end of my, I've got a big ass
yes,
hand, XXL
dude,
hand.
yes.
So that's what I'm faced with. Now on the macro, I probably, when I put my hand on it, I checked it and I had a little bit of length there. But, even with that comp, that little built in thing, my thumb could get in the way, but it is what it is. And I wouldn't be scared to shoot it. But there's just too many variables there. And trying to grab that master grip, so to say, to deploy it, it's just, I want a little more substance there, for width and everything for my size hands. But like I said, for most people out there, it's never going to be a problem.
Yeah, yeah, and a factor is that weight. Like even as much as size, like I have a limit to my size. Even if a gun is like a larger gun but it's super light, that's even like a factor as well. Like I actually like my guns not too light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. So
So
no, I do. And that's why I tell a lot of people, even with a lighter gun, and if you prefer to shoot that smaller gun, if you put one of these on it, it's not just a flashlight. It's a
yeah,
freaking frame weight.
yep,
So it's
yep,
hanging on the rail. What's that going to help you with? I'm not saying load it with fucking pennies and quarters like some people do, but if you run a flashlight, that can help with recoil. It can help with making the gun a little heavier. And some people are like, oh, it's so heavy. Okay, buck up, Buttercup. It's like you don't have to have a 2-ounce gun. That's not the whole point of this because when you're really, a lot of people are like, bang, bang, bang. If shit gets bad, you're going to be like, bang, 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 bang. I mean, you're going to be trigger slapping the dog shit out of that gun,
yes,
or you
yes, and
could
that,
be.
and that's something that people don't think. Like they think it's going to be that whole thing, like get to the wall and you're going to be, dude. It's just going to be an out of control, and you just pray to God that you trained ultimately.
Yeah.
because I think when like I said, I ran into the people that like, will say what they want to say about smaller guns or large guns. And I don't know if they shoot a lot or if they haven't or they did, but I think that if when you go out shooting with them and you're having a conversation and you start talking to them and then they start to shoot that gun and then they grab yours and you're like, yeah, I definitely shoot this one a lot better. And I'm like, man, so that's why I hop into it. It's like, man, look into a good holster because
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how much work the holster does. A little bit
Yeah.
of padding to help you. Man, those teardrop LAS pads that I use for my holsters, that's the only reason why I can sit with one
Yeah.
because that padding is there to help me out because that holster, some holsters dig in you and it's like very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's all, even like with holsters, it's how you're built. I mean, I can carry a 5-inch gun. I've even carried a 6-inch gun, appendix. It's, I'm not saying it's super fun, but, like one item is here that God gave me and the other item's here. So, it's, you got to fit around it. And some people can't carry appendix. I get it. Some people can. They might have a long torso, short torso. I mean, we're all built different, but
Yes.
do what works for you. But the only thing I say is when you're in a vehicle, a lot of people carry at the 3 o'clock or the 4 o'clock. If you've got a seatbelt on, you cannot get to that gun. There's absolutely no way you're going to get to that gun. You're not going to say, hang on a second, let me take my seatbelt off and reach back here. And that's why I set it up in mine so I can just, go right here and I've had to do it. I'm not going to, talk about it, but I have it, I've been to a lot of shady areas. So, not fun, but sometimes you don't ever know what you're dealing with. But yeah, we've gone quite a bit over 15 minutes over. I'm sorry for Chris. I will apologize. I don't want to interfere with his chat, but you know, please everyone go over and subscribe to Arkz Guns. He's got, really good content, really nice equipment. Some of it I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty cool, and I'm a gun guy. I like, nicer guns. I'm not saying that, if you don't, that's not a bad thing. But, things that pique my interest because sometimes it's just like how many Glock 19 videos can you watch? I mean, they're all the same. I just like looking at different things. But we're going to get together. We're going to shoot. So go over and subscribe to him. In the comments, you'll see his link. Also in the description, you'll see his link. So check it out. I appreciate all y'all being on here. We try to answer as many questions, but I wanted to let y'all get acquainted with Ark so you can kind of see what he's about. But we will be meeting up and shooting together. And he's going to stay on the chat, but I'm going to be letting y'all go. But Ark, do you have anything coming up on your channel that you want to talk about or anything you want to advertise, so to say?
Um, well, I'm excited to go actually meet up with you. I'm like very excited to have you try out some of the stuff that I sent you on text.
Yeah.
But some of the ones that I have upcoming that I'm very excited for is a new addition I did is a Langdon Tactical Beretta 92X. So it's
Okay.
got the slide cut and it's also got the trigger job. And I have to admit, man, the trigger on that thing is definitely so close to a 1911. I actually cannot wait until you actually try that trigger out too, because I think you're going to be like, whoa, this is really nice.
Well, I've shot that gun. I've shot.
Oh, okay.
He has the Langdon Tactical RDO edition. That was done by Langdon Tactical, so the trigger and everything, and it is an incredible gun. And I've talked about it before. I love that gun, and y'all forget I'm old. I was shooting 92s back when it wasn't cool, but not the Langdon Tactical. The only thing about the Langdon is the freaking grip is not long enough for my hand. So that is why I prefer the Shadow 2 because you get the longer length over the Langdon Tactical. But the Langdon Tactical is 1000% legit. It is a fabulous gun. I love the gun, but when you do those mag changes, man, it pinches that freaking meat on my hands and it just chews me up. So
Yeah. One last addition I was going to also say, because I do have that same problem because I have like meaty hands. That's literally why you'll see a lot of mag welds on my guns because it's that
yeah,
extra little bit that works for me.
yeah. And that's one thing I will say this: I have not shot a Langdon Tactical with a mag well.
Yeah, I have it off right now, but I
Okay.
have the magwell for it as well.
Okay.
Just because the same scenario, I was like, it's always
Yeah.
been a thing for me too.
Well, that could fix it for me, So, like I said, that would be something I would definitely want to experience. I'm all about trying different things. Even if it's an older gun, there's ways you can, with trigger jobs and things like that. There's ways you can even make them better. So I'm all about that. I enjoy doing that. So, but it is a fabulous. And also one thing, you haven't shot my Shadow 2 with the tricked out trigger. So, I know you love the Shadow 2, but when you get a trigger job on it, it's even better. So,
and I'm excited to try. And I don't. Did you do yours with Cajun Gunworks or?
no, mine is done with, mine has the Apex trigger. So, I mean, it's got Apex kit in it.
Oh,
So, Apex came out with the Shadow 2 trigger with the hammer and stuff. So they came out with their own, and it's legit. Now I have my other Shadow 2 has the Cajun Gunworks kit in it, or I'm sorry, the CZ Custom kit in it. So, and it's a great trigger too, but one has a rolling brake and one has a wall. So this Apex actually has a wall. So if you're taking a farther shot, you can actually wall it up. It's kind of like a 1911 trigger. It's actually pretty badass. So you can wall
I'm
it up.
very excited.
Yeah, and you can break
To
the
be honest,
shot.
I'm more excited to try it out now because I've never even heard that Apex did it. So that's actually even cooler.
Yeah, all of the Cajun Gunworks and the CZ Custom all have rolling triggers, but the Apex actually came out with a wall. So that's the real difference between a lot of the Shadow 2 kits. And I talked about it in detail. So if you like a wall, like where you can prep a trigger, you definitely want the Apex. But if you like the rolling brake, then you would want, the CZ Custom or the Cajun Gunworks. So there are differences, but I mean, I've got two Shadow 2s with different triggers, and I like them both. But I do, if you had to take a further shot where you could prep the trigger, the Apex really does shine over one that just rolls through. So it's just depending on what you prefer,
I think I'm in the line of Apex. I like the idea of the wall a lot. Always have.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a 1911, and that's why
Yep.
I'm all about prepping a trigger. So if
Yep.
I can prep it and get it right where you can break the shot and then prep it and get it back for the follow up, and then release it, because the other one will just roll right through. So, not saying you would have a negligent discharge or anything, but being able to prep it, if you're transitioning to close shots and then a farther shot, it actually does help. It helps me,
Yeah. That's
but
cool.
I'm a prepper. But anything else you want to say before we jump out of here?
I just really want to particularly thank you, Big John. Man, you didn't have to have me on your channel, and you didn't have to introduce me to your family here. And I just really want to thank you, and I really want to thank everybody for subbing and checking me out. I'm very, very new to this, and I'm just having fun. I just want to say thank you to everybody, and particularly to you. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome. Like I said, trying to grow the community, and if I can help somebody, I've helped other channel. I mean, other channels have helped me, so that's what it's all about. I mean, we got to keep a tight community here because we're all trying to change anti-gun people into like-minded people, and I
Yeah.
think if we can just grow our community and have other people, like a lot of my family members, subscribers here, haven't seen you or checked you out or anything like that. So if we can get more people knowing about other people, that's never a bad thing. So, but I really want to I really want to tell you thank you for coming on. I know it was kind of short notice, but I know the subscribers and the family members love to see us interact. And like I said, that's why I don't prep any of my guests. I always just kind of, hey, we're gonna throw you out here and see how you do, and you did great. I know at first you were kind of nervous, going, hey, I've never done this before.
That's what I was gonna say. I was texting him yesterday. I was like, "Hey man, I've never really done this before. I'm not sure." And he's like, "Oh, you'll be fine."
Yeah, and you did. You did awesome. So, like I said, we're all family here. So, if we all hell on videos, I screw up, but I show it all. So nobody's perfect. But like I said, we're all in this learning together and sharing experiences, and that's what it's about. So, but I want to tell all the subscribers and family members out there, thank y'all so much. We'll probably have Arkz on again, and Ark, and let him talk about it. We'll probably do a video of us shooting together and trying different guns. And I do have a series. Ark doesn't know this yet, but we're going to do a series together. How about this? So we're going to do a series together. So for the 25 subscribers that stayed around, we're going to do a series together. And I've got an idea. I'm going to tell it to Ark. I've been talking about this forever. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a series where we take a gun and we both shoot the gun. He gives his opinion, nothing to my opinion. He can have his own biased opinion. I'm going to have my own biased opinion, and you're going to have two opinions on one gun. That is what we're going to do. So we're going to take some of mine, some of his, and you're going to get differing opinions with different hand sizes, different people. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to do something like that. Maybe one video will be one gun. We might film multiple videos with different guns that day, and you're going to get two people's opinion on one gun. So I haven't seen a lot of people. I haven't seen anybody do that, but
No, and now that you mentioned, that's actually really great because the opinions vary so much between everybody. So yeah, that's actually a really good idea right there.
I kicked this over with another YouTuber, and he was excited about it, but he's busy, all that stuff. I get it, but I want to implement this, and I want to give two opinions on one gun, and it's going to be if I hate it or whatever, I'm going to tell you why, and it could only be due to my hand size versus his hand size, but it's going to be like, okay, we both shot this gun. Here's what we both think about it. And you're going to get differing opinions, or maybe we'll end up agreeing on the same thing, or maybe some things. But I've had this idea for a long time. I haven't heard anybody do this. And
No, me neither.
so, well, y'all heard it tonight. So, everybody that's on here, that's what we're going to do. And I want Ark to do it with me. And I think it's going to be enjoyable. So, hope y'all enjoy it. But, we will do that, but thank you, everyone. Ark, you stay on, but everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Again, Chris, I'm sorry for stepping on your chat, but we'll make it up to you. But y'all all have a great night. If you have any questions after the chat, please leave them below on the replay and tune into Ark. He's in the description and in the comments pinned, so you can find his channel and link and just go on over there and subscribe to him and help a brother grow his channel. But y'all have a great
Thank you.
night. Take care, everyone. And remember, an unarmed nation's a very weak nation, so y'all got to carry on.
Thank you, Big J.
All right, stay on.